Most people do not understand the volume of trafficking that's going on in America, in our own backyard.
People want to think that human trafficking only exists in foreign countries. He's running!
The recruitment is happening online and on apps and on social media where all the kids are.
You are a product and you have no other value.
A special frontline report on a police unit in Phoenix.
We just learned that our arrest team is
that tries to recover women and girls.
I was out there for almost 4 years. I hated every second of it. I hated every call.
Somebody sees me like arrested like this, like the girls or the pimp or something, and then
we're not out here to just give you guys a hard time. We really do want to help get you out, okay?
Going undercover.
Once they friend me on Facebook, then I just go into their friend list and I just hit them all up with friend requests.
And online.
Some of them, they put 24 and they're actually 15. I have never, ever met a trafficker that I felt sorry for. And they're literally selling humans day in and day out and making money off of them.
Imagine your child is grabbed right before your eyes only to have them disappear forever into a life of darkness, where the consumption by people with sick predilections makes them the #1 item on the menu for an adult appetite of sex with underage children. Good evening. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and you are engaging now in Steel News. Tonight is an extraordinary opportunity to visit with two women who are equally yoked in their experience in the dark world of the CIA, MKUltra, mind control, and sex trafficking. Dr. Juliette Engel. This woman is incredible. She's an American physician. She moved to Moscow in 1999 and founded the Angel Coalition to combat human trafficking. And over the 10 years while there, the Angel Coalition grew into an underground railroad that assisted hundreds of thousands of victims. She's also a survivor of MKUltra. She also co-founded Moscow's Municipal Orphanage Staff Training Center, Women and Children First, and a nationwide program of community center support for single mothers, the Babushka Brigade. That resulted in an effort of wide alliance between police, prosecutors, judges, journalists, and government officials committed to actually helping the victims. This coalition also launched a public education campaign revealing the atrocities of sex trafficking. Our other guest this evening, Cathy O'Brien. You probably have seen her on a lot of shows as of late. She's made the rounds on many podcasts, and this is her foray onto my show this evening on Steel News, because again, what she has been covering, the transformation of America, is dark. But again, this is a subject that must be covered. She is nationally and internationally recognized as a US government whistleblower on the subject of MKUltra mind control, and she has healed from it. As she has detailed in TRANCE, she became a candidate for MKUltra mind control due to a dissociative disorder developed from incest. Here to join us this evening are both of these incredible women. I am just so pleased to know that they are going to be able to connect for the first time on my show, Steel News. I'd like to welcome now, absolutely, Dr. Juliette Engel and Cathy O'Brien. Ladies, it is lovely to have you, and thank you for sticking with me through some of the technical difficulties before we were able to get this broadcast out.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, glad to be here.
Yeah, you two women are you women are heroes in my book and in millions of people's books around the world. You know, this is the first time the two of you have actually ever been together on camera and actually met each other, frankly. And so it's an honor to have you both on. Both of you suffered the devastating effects of life as an MKUltra sex traffic victim. But I'm proud to say that neither of you are victims today. You know, Cathy, I've known you for a little bit longer, well, probably a lot longer now than Dr. Juliette Engel, who I most recently met through Our Country, Our Choice. I want to start with you because I want people to understand it's no longer victims. It's, you're victorious. You don't claim the status of victim anymore. But I'd like you to, kind of bring people up to speed on what it's like to meet somebody who's a fellow victim who's, you know, fairly well influential in this entire movement of exposing MK Ultra mind control.
Well, this is exciting right now because there's so many survivors that are emerging, many on varying levels of healing. And I'm so fortunate to have been able to heal so early on, back before people even knew about MK Ultra mind control, before they knew about human trafficking, or that there was even a swamp in Washington, D.C. All the way back in 1990, I was able to reclaim my self-control, my inner peace, and do healing from within myself. When I meet other survivors, I can see what level of healing they're on and can encourage them along their journey if they're just beginning or just starting out. And then to see so many others actually shining the light of truth and showing others that, yes, it is within us all to heal. No matter what life has put in our path, we're able to heal. And Juliette, I am so thrilled to meet you today and know you have been out there on the front lines, bringing this truth to light too. And, you know, it's that effort that's making all the difference for other survivors, because when they see us, it sets others free too. And I'm just so happy to meet you and honored to meet you and know the magnitude of what you have done and devoted your life to since you've been free. You're amazing.
Thank you. So are you.
Juliette, you know, can you walk our audience through MK Ultra mind control? You were sold into a CIA family for MK Ultra mind control at the young age of 6 years old, which, first of all, to sell your child and give it away at 6 years old for money, to me, is I can't imagine it. But then to know you're knowingly putting that child into harm's way is something more demonic than my mind can even wrap itself around. Give us a little rundown, please.
Yeah, I think Cathy was sold too, weren't you, Cathy?
My father sold me early. Yes.
Yeah, my father sold me when I was 6. I grew up not having any recollection of my childhood, nothing, and didn't feel a need to even start to look. I'd gone through medical school. I was very successful. I had a medical technical company. I was making tons of money, huge house. I had all the bells and trimmings. And then my daughter was born, and this little miniature version of me was in my hands. And I was so terrified. I was just terrified that something was going to happen. And worse, I was terrified that I was going to hurt her. And of course, when your child is born, I mean, I looked in this little version of me and trying to remember, I mean, how was I raised? You know, what did my parents do? What were they like? What should I do? And I would get these awful, when I would get anything, the images would just be horrific. So I was sure I was going mad. And at that time I had some contact still with my parents. And so I started asking them, you know, what is this? Who was that? You know, what was that? And my father took me out to lunch and gave me several scenarios and sort of said, would you believe this? And I said, no. Would you believe this? No. And then he said, well, I told him I was starting to see a psychiatrist because I was just terrified I was going to do something to my child. And he said that if I continued to see a psychiatrist, I would never see my parents again. They would be out of my life permanently. And I said, well, I'm going to see the psychiatrist. And he said, well, it's your choice. And I said, if I can't solve this, if I don't see the psychiatrist, I'm going to kill myself or hurt my child. And he said, that's your choice. It's nothing to do with us. And I never saw him again. That was it. He and my mother sold their house, took off in an Airstream trailer, lived in Mexico for all I knew. So then I was sort of cast loose in this crazy, trying to remember, trying to make sense of it. And I was in Seattle, which at the time I was in the crowd with Bill Gates and you know, the founders of, these were all the startups, Starbucks, Adobe, Costco, it was this crowd. And so it was probably full of MK Ultra people, but nobody. There wasn't any solace or anything there, anything I could reach or hold on to. And my psychiatrist had no idea what was going on, except that he convinced me that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't going to hurt my child. And so I was sidetracked and went off to Russia, and people were always asking and got very involved in preventing children and women from being trafficked. Started the Angel Coalition, ran an underground railroad, did a lot of research and teaching, and did a lot of very dangerous things. And journalists would always ask, so why are you doing this? You know, you don't need to do this. Why are you here? It was just this constant driver to fix this. And then I read Transformation. I got a copy of Cathy's book and went nuts. It just triggered me from one end to the other, and I still didn't quite understand what was going on because I had no verification, just this driver in me. And I tried several times reading Cathy's book. I'd get to certain points and I would get triggered and fall asleep, and found it extremely difficult, but I did it. And at that time, I don't know if you still do it, but you were offering a CD that had documents on it, like 14,000 documents. And so I ordered that and looked through them. They're heavily redacted. I was hoping to find me in there, but of course, you know, they'd taken all that out. But what it did do was affirm that, yes, these programs existed. Yes, this was going on. And then it took me a while to figure out because I didn't know anyone in my family except my parents, and they were gone. How did I get into this? It turns out my entire family were CIA. My uncles were all in Germany during Nuremberg. They were all OSS at that time. My uncle started the NSA, was part of the founding group. And they were heavily involved in Project Paperclip. It took me a long time to find that out. So I was a natural. So they brought the German scientists over and they sold them their kids. And so that's how I got into it. And so I'll stop talking.
Wow, it's a deep story. You know, Cathy, listening to Juliette, it's got to send some sparks back into your early, childhood. And then when you became a mother to your daughter, Kelly, did you find similar apprehension about having a small child, that perhaps you were afraid you might do something you didn't want to because of memories that were being suppressed from your childhood?
The last free thought that I remember having when I was sold into MK Ultra at such an early age, around age 3, and I was rapidly losing more and more free thought. And I remember one of the last thoughts I had was that I wish there was some place in the world where people didn't hurt each other, where the children were safe. And I wanted to have 10 children that I could protect and make sure they were safe forever. And then I lost my free thought. I was thrust into MK Ultra, used on a White House Pentagon level, was totally robotic from the sophisticated NASA, DARPA, and military programming that I endured. And I had no capacity to think for myself. I had no capacity to save myself from the circumstances I was in, or to say no to the criminal operations that I was forced to participate in. So by the time my daughter was born, I couldn't think to protect her any more than I could think to protect myself. So I had no capacity for fear. I had no capacity to think that I would do something to her when my whole innate being only wanted to protect. And that mechanism within me was used against me in MK Ultra mind control. It was the most traumatic thing I experienced. There were no near-death tortures that were even close to the thought or the knowing on any level that my daughter was being abused, and I couldn't stop it. So I was manipulated that if I did such and such, she wouldn't be hurt. And in later years, I found out she had been told the same thing. If she did such and such, I wouldn't be hurt. And as much as we were manipulated by perception and fooled into thinking that we were protecting each other when in fact we weren't at all, nevertheless, the love is there. Love is like its own energy force. It's more than an emotion. It's more than a decision. It's something innate. It's our spiritual energy force, and there's nothing more powerful than a mother's love. And so that aspect was there. And so my experience was very different in that regard. And then by the time Mark lifted Kelly and I out of the Washington, D.C. swamp in 1988, that was back before people even knew there was a swamp or mind control or human trafficking or anything else. When he lifted us out of it, she was immediately taken into the corrupted Child Protective Services. The FBI was complicit in making sure that she was thrust into that catch net operation for trafficked children that had been established in the mid-'80s. So from that point, my love for my daughter is what compelled me to start speaking out to begin with. I healed as fast as I could, was strong in who I am. It didn't matter to me if anybody validated what I had to say or what. I was speaking out of love and concern for my daughter all the way back in 1990. So that love compelled me to speak out on her behalf, expose the corruption within the system, expose how our justice system had been corrupted from the beginning, all the way back in 1960 when my father received immunity from prosecution for his pedophile acts and his pornography of me by selling me into MK Ultra. National security was invoked back then, and justice was completely derailed to allow for the proliferation of pedophilia back then. By the time my daughter was thrust into the corrupt system in 1990, it was absolute saturated and needed to be exposed. I'm so thrilled that today people realize the magnitude of the corruption. They're seeing the corruption in our system. And it's up to us to protect the children going forward. My daughter and I now are very, very, very close. We both have gained deep insight because of what we experienced in MK Ultra mind control, what we experienced on our healing journey. Juliette, I'm sure you know, I mean, it feels so crazy at first to even know to start seeing what happened and realize you've lost this time and the dissociation and the flashes of memory. It feels so wild. But what I experienced and what my daughter experienced in the corrupted system, you know, it was such a journey even through that aspect to reach this point now of absolute knowing that no matter what life throws in front of us, we can all heal. No matter what we experience for what length of time, we're still capable of healing because we have been blessed with the most resilient body, mind, and spirit. I celebrate my freedom every day. My daughter celebrates it every day. And together, we just live in a constant state of gratitude and are waiting for people to continue this great awakening to the point where this is no longer an issue, where we can all actually help the children now while they need it most, because we can't wait for this corrupt system to clean up. It's up to us to help each other. And that's why I appreciate so much what you have done, Juliette. You've just been active in that for so long. And that's what's making all the difference in the world.
Amen.
Yes, and that's what our country, our children is about.
Yes.
Our country, our children. We're going to get to that in a minute. You know, you said something interesting, Cathy. You talked about the Great Awakening, that you and Kelly are celebrating life every day. Juliette, I know you are, because you're you're taking the bull by the horns, and you're engaging. You engaged in the Soviet Union. You're engaging right back here in the United States of America, where we are, you know, the biggest consumers of child sex trafficking. It's just disgusting. But does it ever, when you two are sitting here together right now and you both recognize what the other has gone through from such a young age, do you ever stop back and just, I don't want to say marvel is the wrong word. Are you just ever overwhelmed by the scope of how big this problem is? I don't think people understand that this is happening in your neighborhoods. It's happening all across communities around America and around the world. This is a real problem, that children are being sold into slavery and trafficked, and it's being done by the government, by the cartels. And let's face it, the government and the cartels, they work hand in hand. These are all criminal organizations. The governments are not here to help the people. It's quite the opposite. They're at war with the people. You know, Dr. Engel, does it ever just grasp you and go, oh my God, are we really up against something that may not be conquerable, or are we going to win this in the end?
Well, it's a spiritual war. It's evil. I mean, it's that primal. It's do we survive as a species or do we perish? It's good versus evil. I mean, we're up against massive evil, but we're not defenseless, and the Lord is with us. And the thing I've learned is that I go out there and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight, and then suddenly I feel like the Holy Spirit sits me down and says, okay, now we're going to do something. And things start to move. And the problem's enormous, but so are we. I mean, because we have the Lord. And that, for me, was the biggest struggle of my all these years, because I was programmed. I was raised in the Church of Satan. I was in the program for 17 years. I was not allowed to go to a church, read a Bible, ever even speak of anything but black masses, Saturnalias, all the things that I was put through. But my grandmother, my Norwegian grandmother, who couldn't stand any of this, had taught me the Lord's Prayer. So I had the Lord's Prayer, and I knew how precious that was. I just held on to that. So I had that. But slowly overcoming the satanic programming was just an enormous struggle, a day-by-day struggle inside of me while I was doing the external things with running the Angel Coalition Underground Railroad and all of that. The demons would come after me, and I was vulnerable because of that connection to Satan, and I wasn't proficient in prayer, and I was still carrying so much survivor's guilt because I would go through a Saturnalia, and because I think it's because I come from bloodline families, but I would be abused and raped and drugged and have to watch other children being sacrificed. And that, I had so much guilt over that. I still do. And so I had survived by like taking this warrior's pledge that I would grow up, I would survive, and I would save those children. Of course, I can't. They've been dead for 60 years. But someone sat me down. Actually, I think it came right through the Holy Spirit and said, God has those children. They're not your responsibility anymore, or never were. They're God's children. You know, God has a purpose for you, and you just keep listening. And as Cathy said, you just be thankful and grateful, and so I don't. Sometimes at 4 a.m, I get overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem, and then I realize that's the time the demons come to me, and so I get up, have a cup of coffee, and shake it off, and go out and sit in my garden.
Well, that's a good place to go.
But we're going to defeat this.
I think we are, and the public awakening is happening. I want to show you all something here that is out on the internet. It's been seen quite often. I think it's something that's important for people to take a look at. If I can just pick it up here. Here we are. This is Senator John Kennedy. He is a representative out of Louisiana, and he's talking with FBI Director Chris Wray. This is recent. It's back on June 4th. And he's talking to him about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and other people involved in their child sex trafficking ring on Epstein Island and elsewhere. This has already been seen by 360,000 people just on this particular post right here. I'm sure it's millions, but I think it's worthy of a listen. And I'd like you both to comment upon it when we conclude.
We know that Jeffrey Epstein, who is now deceased, and Ms. Maxwell, his associate, who's in prison, were engaged in a conspiracy of sex trafficking with minors. So were others. It's been widely reported. What's the FBI doing to investigate the other people that were involved in these sex trafficking rings?
Well, I'm not sure that I can confirm any specific individual.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me give you some facts, widely reported. Jeffrey Epstein had video surveillance in all of his homes and on his private island. And there have been articles after articles from witnesses who have said he videotaped sex acts with prominent people because he was trying to incur with young girls that he had procured to try to incur favor with those prominent people and potentially to be able to blackmail them. Now, that's a fact. And the FBI and other federal agencies have raided his houses. Do you have those tapes?
Again, I can't discuss the specifics of our law enforcement operations related to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell, but obviously we had very active investigation related to both of them. But whether it extends to other people, I'm not sure that's something
but here,
comment on.
A suit was filed yesterday against one of those prominent people by one of the young women sex trafficked, allegedly, said he was part of the ring. It's on the front page. I don't know, is this New York Times, Wall Street Journal? And we keep seeing article after article after article. And we keep hearing about prominent person after prominent person after prominent person. I just want to know if these prominent people are above the law and are going to be, and aren't being investigated, or is the FBI investigating them?
Well, no one is above the law, number one. As to whether specific people are being investigated, that's not something that I, as I'm sure you can appreciate, can engage on here. We've devoted significant resources to the investigation.
Is it ongoing?
I'm not sure there's anything I can share with you on that, but let me see if we can get back to you and provide a little more.
Well, for example, these allegations in this lawsuit, the civil action.
Yeah, I haven't seen
you ought to read
the article.
It'll trigger your gag reflex. Is the FBI going to investigate that?
Well, again, I haven't seen the article, but I would be happy to take a look at it and take it back and see if it's part of something.
I'd just like to know.
I share your.
Yeah, is the FBI still investigating this, or are these prominent people going to go scot-free?
I'm not sure that I can tell you whether or not there is ongoing work being devoted to this. I would be happy to take a look at the specific article. I share your disgust at Mr. Epstein's conduct and Ms. Maxwell's conduct.
And others.
He shares his disgust. Dr. Engel, comment?
Well, if the government wasn't complicit in this, it wouldn't be happening. And it's been, you just take a look at all the opinion polls that both parties are putting out now. You know, they're asking Americans, what concerns you the most? And it's always, you get to choose between the economy, the border, the price of food, inflation, gasoline prices, all these things. Where's child trafficking? Come on, why isn't it an issue? Why isn't it anywhere? It's because it is so completely suppressed by the government, by the media, by law enforcement, that it's been forced into it's been disappeared. Just like my childhood memories, it's been erased, and it's erased because so many people are involved in it, and the profits are huge. And half of what's going on in Ukraine is human trafficking, baby farms, child trafficking, selling children, selling children's organs, raising children to kill and sell. I mean, people are making billions of dollars out of this. And
is this a bigger problem than the potential multipolar war we are facing between the Middle East, the Asia Pacific region, and of course what's brewing down in South America off the coast of Venezuela?
Well, yeah, it's involved in all that, and that's one of the reasons that I'm pushing so hard right now with OC is that when the economy tanks, when people realize the mess that we're in, because as you say, the Great Awakening is taking place, but ain't there yet. The catastrophe is going to come first. We're going to go off the abyss. The economy is going to crash, just like the Soviet Union did. When their economy crashed, the most vulnerable people were victimized, sold, chopped up, sold out, sent into hell. The human trafficking is going to go off the map because women will be forced to sell themselves, and families will sell their children. People will turn to drugs and sell their kids to buy drugs. We're not going to be any different than what the catastrophe that swept through the Soviet Union and isn't cured yet. But the size of the problem is bigger than all those things combined, because it's the survival of our species we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's it. Cathy, I mean, you have been a government whistleblower now for some time. You were trafficked in the White House, throughout government. What is your response to Director Wray from the FB, as I call it, the FB lie?
Yeah, really. Since I was used in blackmail operations while I was still a toddler, when I was sold into MK Ultra, I was taken to Mackinac Island, Michigan, which was the Epstein Island of its time. And it's where these politicians and these global leaders got together to discuss how they were going to impose this slave society agenda. In order for people to be compliant with them, they needed to have a compliant society of generations of the pedophile agenda. The pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda. It's also that blackmail operation, because these criminals, these perpetrators, don't trust each other either, so they hold each other by the blackmail, so to speak. It's been going on my whole life. It was going on at Mackinac Island, Michigan. It was going on in Bohemian Grove, and we hear about Epstein Island, and I'm sure that now that it's been exposed, they've moved it somewhere else. But this blackmail with the video footage to use it as blackmail is still going on. This is inexcusable. The FBI isn't investigating it. However, having been around these perpetrators and hearing what their plan was, the plan is to appoint one corrupt FBI agent at the top. That corrupt FBI agent has influence over all the agencies. The agents do what they're told. Those agents, the way that our system is structured, can come in on any local law enforcement, any police investigation, any child sex trafficking on a local level. They can come in under the guise of national security and take over that case. My owner in MK Ultra Mind Control, who became my owner when I was 13 years old, when I met him in Mackinac Island, Michigan, U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd, opened an office in the FBI building in the mid-'80s to set up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children with the FBI over it, so that they could use it as a catch net operation for any child that got out of their grip, like my daughter did, which is exactly how she ended up thrust in the system, because it's been deliberately structured with the FBI over it. So this is something I've witnessed. It's something I've been speaking out on for 35 years, and I'll continue to speak out on it. Truth is easy to remember. It's always consistent. My testimony on this has been consistent for 35 years. We need to consider that this corruption is so pervasive, we can't clean it up. We need to really just get rid of this and take care of the children ourselves. The system's too corrupt.
You know, you make such a great point. And again, to the fact that there's so many organizations out there that say they're fighting child trafficking and missing and exploited children and so on and so forth. There's good groups and there's not good groups. There's good people in government. There's horrible people in government. Liz Churchill, who's a prolific social media content provider, she's amazing. She's actually up in Canada. She's a friend. She put this out on social media a while back, which I thought was absolutely poignant. Because she says, just when you think it can't get any worse, here's Hunter Biden's accused of child sex trafficking, receiving an award from the founder of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Well, that's John Walsh. We all remember the Adam Walsh story. There he is giving Hunter Biden an award for this. And this she put out in April of 2023. You know, Juliette, you've started organizations that are, you know, focused on protecting children. What do you think when you see stuff like this?
I think it's all an inside deal. And when I was working in Russia, they didn't have that. They had big sloppy mafias and all kinds of stuff going on, but it wasn't tightly organized like it is here. And the reason that I haven't been able to get anything going inside the United States is that social media and mainstream media and all these organizations are corrupted. And they report to the Council on Foreign Relations. I was being recruited by the Council on Foreign Relations when they were coming, when different groups were coming and making presentations, so that the Council on Foreign Relations set their policies. And so it's all false. We're living in this massive cake of stale sugar. I don't know. It's to me, it's like a fragile, sticky, gooey mess that's going to come falling down. And out of that, we've got to start over in a lot of ways. And people there are good organizations out there, but they're small. And you cannot get government funding if you're a genuine organization. And you can't really use social media if you are not part of the gloppy, gooey government mess. Right, Cathy? I mean, they lock you out.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't want any government funding, and I'm speaking out all across the nation to groups and communities where the people are taking the action themselves and setting up safe houses for survivors so they can heal from within themselves, write out their memory. You know, PTSD Time to Heal has very simple, applicable methods for healing that anybody can use. And people are, and they're reclaiming their self-control and inner peace, but they need a safe place to be. So people are reaching out and saying, well, here's a safe place. It's unorganized. It's people helping people. And ultimately, that's what's happening with all walks of life. I'm seeing the education system reorganizing with the communities coming together and doing homeschooling. There may be groups of the homeschooling. And in these homeschools, it's so exciting to me to see them teaching the children how to get out and grow their own food, get their hands in the earth, breathe in the air, get out in nature. You know, that's part of the homeschooling education. And I'm seeing it happening in the medical community. I'm seeing it in all walks of life where people are taking responsibility for their own lives, because we have been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion to tell us how to live our lives, when in fact we have all the power. We just forgot. When we regain our free thought, our free will, we remember that we've got all the power. We can tap into that strength of the human spirit, that infinite power of love, and make all the difference in the world. We don't have to wait for government to do it. Big government's not going to clean this up for us. Big government's doing it to us. It's up to us. We the people, each individual needs to take responsibility for their own lives. And we need to do it now for the children's sake. They're counting on us.
Oh my gosh, you are just breathtaking to listen to. It's fabulous, but it's so true. You know, I preach every day that the Constitution is it's still there. It's
Yes.
not a parchment piece of paper that's a dried up relic like Nancy 3 Martinis Pelosi would refer to it as, but it's there. It just has an overlay of U.S. code and statutes, which is smothering it right now. And these U.S. codes and statutes are all about the agency government, which has never been a government of, by, or for the people. But those agencies are full of corruption, just like the FBI, just like the CIA, just like CDC, FDA, all of them. They have stripped us from our humanity and our freedom. And they've deployed horrific programs like the CIA's MK Ultra and sex magic that you women had been a party to and a part of and abused by. But we, the people, do have the power, and we can reject all of that. And that is what I believe part of this awakening is about. Juliette, please comment, because I thought what Cathy said was so inspiring.
Oh, I think so. And when I was asked to lead the Children's Protection Project as part of our country, our children, as the only answer is to create a grassroots network and not take any money from anybody. Generate everything you need locally. It can be done. None of this needs to be expensive. But each community should have a group of individuals that trust each other. So it's trust and caring, as you say, and so you need groups in the community that are non-governmental, and that doesn't need to be registered with the government. Even churches, schools, educators, law enforcement, people that provide safe houses and counseling for victims, and law enforcement, usually the county sheriffs, who will actually go and rescue.
Well, this is what I see happening around the country. I want to share something with you. This is a friend of mine, Patrick Collis. He actually started
We're going to build this network. Yeah, Cathy, you'll be part of it, and is already. So Cathy, please come join us. You're an inspiration to everyone that's going through any of this.
Oh, I'm as active as I can be, and I'm wide open to any opportunity to empower people even more in light of what I know. I'm so excited at this movement that's happening, and it's about time. I've waited a lifetime for people to wake up and realize the scope of this problem, and they got it. They see it now. Now they want to know, what can I do? And that's where we can come in, especially, like you and I, who have been there and know and have the insight, to be able to say, come on, healing's possible. We can reclaim our peace. We can reclaim our joy. We can reclaim our life's purpose. Everyone needs to do that. It begins with free thought. And then we can reclaim the reason why we're all here at this pivotal moment in humanity's history. What an amazing time to be alive.
It really is. It really is one of those tipping point moments, like the Battle of Hastings or the founding of Russia. It's just,
or the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and I mean everything that's transforming right now. I mean, we're seeing a great awakening. At the same time, we're seeing a power struggle with the globalist elite, the establishment, who is basically strangling the world. And they're going to continue to try to beat us down and to win. But God wins in the end. And that always has given me strength, because I do lean very deeply into my faith on that. I want to, let you ladies wrap this up with how you see things. And I'd like to start with Cathy. I'm going to start on your webpage, Cathy, just so that you can talk a little bit about Transformation of America. Juliette mentioned she found your books, and that gave her a source of inspiration. So talk to us a little bit about what people can expect when they come to your website, but give us some hope at the end of all of this, please.
Yeah. Well, I've got my blogs there too, and my books are available. They're available on Audible. I read them myself to preserve the integrity of information. Transformation of America was my 1995 testimony for Congress that was censored under national security. So it was released in book form for all members of Congress. Wasn't intended for the public, but I guess it got out there anyway, and people need to know this information to see that what we're seeing today isn't new. What's new is that we're seeing it. It's been going on a long, long time. transformation of America certainly outlines much of what we're experiencing today. Access denied for reasons of national security tells Mark's and my love story, our journey through the corrupted justice and mental health system for my daughter. And PTSD Time to Heal is the healing methods that Mark taught me. And ultimately, he reminded me that it's within us all to heal. So that little book there is posted and secured on my website so everyone can have it now and apply it to themselves to reclaim and retain their free thought going forward. Because without free thought, there's no free will. And without free will, there's no soul expression. Ultimately, that is where mind control becomes a spiritual battle. These perpetrators, having been around them, their greatest fear is that we are going to reclaim our free thought and remember that we have all the power and tap in to that infinite strength of the human spirit and power of love. That is such a high vibration. They can't touch that. The only thing they can feed off of hatred, negativity, division, and fear. They're not going to get any more of that from me. And I encourage everyone to arm themselves with the truth that makes us free and raise your vibration, live the love that you are, because that's where we win. That's where they lose, and it's game over from there.
Amen. Beautifully said, as always, Cathy. Dr. Juliette Engel, how can you close us out this evening?
Well, a large part of my programming was trying to torture you into giving up your soul. And if you gave up your soul through the ritual abuse and the things that they did, interestingly, that process, the color is green. So there's your green agenda. It's the obliteration of the human soul, or as Cathy said, the obliteration of free will. So I think a lot of people in MK Ultra have done that, and you see these soulless people in government because you're instantly rewarded. If I'd given up my soul, I would have been, promoted, wealthy. I could have been a glittering rock star, or whatever they wanted to put me into. Wouldn't matter if I had any aptitude for it or not. But if you're a soul, you see these soulless people who can't sing, but yet they're jumping around singing at the Super Bowl. Those are the success, the MK Ultra successes, and the difference between that kind of person and like Cathy, where your soul is intact, you radiate love and strength. There's no comparison. It's just, Cathy, you're such an inspiration to me, really, and so many people now contact me and talk about. I'm just amazed how many people do contact me and say, "Okay, I don't remember anything, and I'm starting to see these things, and what should I do?" And I send them to your book.
Thank you.
After they've read my book, which sends them into the abyss, I say, "Okay, now go read Cathy's book." and so there's a lot. There's probably thousands and thousands of people who are recovering from this, and whatever we can do to help them. But it is PTSD. It definitely is.
Well, you've written a book on it. You've written a book, and it's called Surviving Sex Magic, right, Sparky?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
There it is, Surviving Sex Magic. So that can also be found on the Our Country, Our Children website, ourcountryourchildren.com. So
it's also on Amazon.
And Amazon, excuse me. It's also on Amazon. Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic. So both of you ladies have had an incredible life. And I mean, honestly, the stories are amazing. When I sit and I can't believe that I'm talking to two women who have been through this. I have no idea what it's like to have been in your shoes. And it's a horrible thought, but I'm sitting here just in awe because I've had experiences where I thought one of my children was abducted. They disappeared. I can remember 2 instances like it was yesterday. I remember what I was wearing, and I start to sweat when I talk about it because the thought of them being abducted and what would have happened next was just, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. I was in such terror. because of, unfortunately, some of the things I knew back then about children being abducted, but I just didn't have any idea until the last 5 years just how pervasive this problem really is. And it's because of the two of you that have been so vociferous in publishing information and getting it out there and speaking out and taking a stand and fighting back, but fighting with the victims to help them recover. It's just a beautiful gift to humanity, the two of you are. So for that, I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak out.
And I hope the two of you do a show together on a regular basis, because I think there's many people that can learn from the gifts that you can give, from the experiences in which you've had, because you two don't wallow under a dark cloud. You find the silver lining and you shine it back on everybody. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, and we need people like you who weren't mired in it like we were. I mean, nobody sat either Cathy or I down and said, okay, this is what's happening to you, and this is the plan, and this is, we just experienced it. But people like you who look at it can probably analyze more about the intellectual structure of what needs to be done.
Well, I just simply look at it from a complete case of government corruption. Government has just gotten way too big. It was never designed to be what we have. And they're not serving us at all. They're serving themselves and their sick predilections. And unfortunately, people need to wake up and recognize that this government is not one of, by, and for the people. It is a corporate entity. And I will say it again, 28 USC 3002 15A. United States is a federal corporation. And the United States is defined as 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. swamp. And we can't say it enough. That corporation is out of control, and it's got sub corporations called the FBI, CIA, and IRS, and a whole bunch of other things that have nothing to do with any of us. So we're going to take it back. Ladies, thank you so much for your time this evening. It has just been a pleasure. And now the two of you are connected, I hope to find out that you're doing more of this.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
Okay, wonderful. All right, everybody. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us. And I will be back again in the not too distant future with more information. I'm diving into some stories right now that are quite extraordinary, and I look forward to bringing them forward to you. I hope you all have a lovely evening. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And I'd like to really thank those two women for joining me this evening, Dr. Juliette Engel and Cathy O'Brien. Wow, incredible. Have a great evening, everybody.